Obviously, he has difficult decisions every week, leaving out players in midfield where they do have lots of big names. But I couldn't see him actively disrupting what he's got going on at Liverpool at the moment with those forward players. Like, so much is written in the media about the relationship between Mane and Salah and who wants this and who wants that. And if it's anywhere near as dramatic as things are made out to be, I don't think that they need any sort of poking. I think that his motivation skills are proven in themselves. Klopp's motivation is very different to the way that Ferguson used to do things. Ferguson very much ruled by fear, whereas Klopp really wants to trust his own players. They're his boys, as he always calls them, his boys and the lads, and he's really part of that. And I think he manages in a totally different way.
I thought you were about to say rules by love, but
I considered it did cross my mind.
Hi guys, and welcome to the Whipping It In podcast, the podcast you didn't ask for. And we got two special guests,
Rafe, the man with the lovely ginger beard, and I'm Joe, and we have a channel called the Premier Football Podcast, where we look at everything that's happening in the Premier League, and you can find us on YouTube, on Spotify, and then we're on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all the main social media channels as well.
Good stuff. And so today we're talking about the German league and sort of looking at the lessons that we can learn, but also looking at sort of what they've done well. And it's obviously the Bundesliga kicking off again, and we want to talk about and cover this as much as we can, since there's no Premier League stuff to talk about. So the first thing I want to kick off with is it safe? Because when I was doing a bit of research, comparing the Germany situation and how sort of the UK have dealt with things as a whole, and when looking at it, so I believe in Germany, the 25th February, somebody was tested positive, and from that point onward, they traced a lot, they tracked a lot in terms of how things are done. It was taken a lot more serious in some ways compared to the UK. And I've seen now in Germany, they're doing tests of nearly over 600,000 per week, and plus more than that. Whereas UK have just started, 100,000, and that's probably not even all of it. They may be missing some as well. So I just want to kick off with you, Rafe. Do you feel it's safe to kick off?
I don't think that you're wrong at all. In terms of saying that Germany have handled the situation and the crisis a lot better than the UK. Obviously, myself and Joe are looking in at the UK from the outside, and internationally, it doesn't look good for them. They haven't come across well at all in the way that they've tackled it, the way they've approached it, and the way they've handled it. But as well as Germany have done in tackling the problem and investing in testing and investing in resources, you've still got a situation where only this week you've got players in the German second division testing positive. Has anyone answered the question what's going to happen if one of the players does contract the virus in Germany? Because obviously they're going to try to get the fixtures completed in a smaller time period. But if they're going by the regulations that they've gone by up to now, and players that receive a positive test need to isolate for 2 weeks, and everyone they've been in contact with needs to isolate for 2 weeks, like, you can't be taking teams have been in contact with out of training and out of game situations for 2 weeks and expect it to go smoothly.
Yeah, sure. I think it's a bad idea all around to be starting back football. It's not essential. As much as we love it, we have to realize that it's not an essential component of our lives. Obviously, from what Rafe and I have discussed about it ourselves, kind of privately and on the one podcast we did during this pandemic, is that it's a money game, right? So because clubs are going to be and sponsors and TV companies are going to be losing money, there's almost an obligation on the leagues and on the football associations of all the countries around Europe to get things started. And because Germany have handled the crisis perhaps the most efficiently of the larger European countries in general, the UK as well, they're looking to get things started again this weekend. But I just think it's way too soon. And they eased the lockdown in Germany over the past 2 weeks, and immediately they saw an increase in new cases. So this thing is so unprecedented. It's so rapid in terms of how quickly it spreads. And I just think it's a bad idea to be trying to restart football so soon. It's 2 months since the last game of the Bundesliga, if I'm not mistaken.
But do you think like the government measures in place to, for example, like a limited number of people around the pitch, and then also like the daily testing, coronavirus testing, and temperature testing, is that going to be something that might? Because as I feel like Germany definitely said they're relaxing like football, and then I think this is the best like way forward for German football. For example, like putting loads of testing in. I think that's the safest way possible. If they were, I think the Germans said they're definitely going to continue this, and so you would suggest like, is there a way around it to make it more safer for the players?
Well, you can try your best to contain it as much as you can, and you can try to catch it early and find cases. But there is going to come a point where someone is going to test positive, and people around them, like you could have 7 or 8 or 15 people from a team being isolated for 2 weeks at a time. And it's just not going to be possible for those teams to fulfill fixtures at that time. And the schedule is just going to keep getting kicked down the line once 1 or 2 cases break out. Like, how isolated can you keep these footballers from the rest of the world?
At the same time, as well as the footballers, what do fans want to do when their football team are playing? They want to congregate together wherever possible. And are they going to be obeying the strict lockdowns or the less strict lockdowns in Germany? We don't know. So that's another issue to kind of get by, like fans going. I believe in the last game that was played in the Bundesliga, that a couple of hundred fans congregated outside the stadium, and that's just not a situation that is appropriate at this time at all. I just think it's way too soon. I think people need to realize that this is a situation that we've never experienced in our lifetime, and that we need to be very, very careful in getting back to life as normal. And unfortunately, football should not be a priority.
But when I was looking into things, so one of the reasons why Germany is starting football again and why the Premier League isn't is because of TV broadcasting deals and TV rights. So I believe in the UK, February was the last payment of the season, so that was paid to the Premier League clubs, and that's why I guess in the UK Premier League teams don't feel as urged to play. Whereas I feel in Germany, because I don't believe they've received the full amount of payment, and that's probably it's going to support them a lot. And then obviously without match, fans going to the game where they're spending a lot of money, burgers, match seat tickets, merchandise, etc. Losing that money as well is going to, affect in terms of paying their staff. Do you guys, I'll start with you, Joe, do you guys see that in Germany they're a bit more, what's the word, restricted? Like they're having to take the deal because they need the money? Or do you feel like, why do you feel they could, start this season? What is the main reason?
It'd have to be about money. It's the only thing that makes sense, and it's the same with the UK. Boris Johnson coming out and telling some non-essential workers that they're allowed to go back to work now. It's because the economies are in trouble, and certainly the economy of football is in trouble. And the clubs who are most at risk are obviously lower down the tables. Like they're not the league. They're not getting money.
Joe, to cut across you, there are a few of the bigger teams in Germany. I think Schalke are one of them that have said that there is a high likelihood they'll go out of business if they don't get the money in this year, because the way that they've staggered their TV revenue for contracts and for outgoings, the money that they have due to come out over the next 6 months will cripple the club if no money comes in, and they're not alone in that. So I think that's why there's more of an urgency in Germany. Maybe a few of the Premier League clubs are slightly cushier. You have the likes of Brighton coming out saying, oh, well, we can take this season's loss, but we can't take the loss of relegation over the next couple of years. Even the poorest Premier League clubs do seem to be in a position to survive for at least a few months, whereas the situation does seem a little more pressing in other parts of the world. Now, I suppose the question you have to ask is whether or not the football clubs are important enough to potentially put people in danger across the country, because this stuff is going to need to go back eventually. Things will start coming back eventually, and it would be a massive shame in 3 or 4 months if everything was to start reopening and some of these great football clubs with 100 years of history were no longer around because they couldn't scrape a few quid together. The other side of things is if they are forced to start looking to take in loans and take in finance from around the world, they're then creating ties with these companies and they're handing over more of their ownership. And in Germany especially, they have laws meaning that I think the fans have to own 51% of every club. So there's only so much of the club that can be sold. There's only 49%, and no one's going to come in and launch millions and hundreds of millions at a club that they can't have a total demand over or a majority share in. So I think because of the way the clubs are structured over there, it is a little bit different, but at the same time, I'm still opposed to it. I still think that you're playing with human lives, and it's just not completely appropriate to put a price on it.
So Lewis, jumping to you, the point I think the Premier League player, what's his name, came out today, I believe, Danny Rose, wasn't it, saying that it shouldn't kick off in the Premier League, and it's quite recent that things like this pop up. What do you think about this situation right now? For the looking into this, do you think the UK or Premier League teams as a whole are in a better position than in Germany?
Yeah, I think a lot of the Premier League players said they're not going to play. So I think they had, I heard in the newspaper said they have a WhatsApp group and they were telling their manager saying they're scared to play, especially I think Sergio Aguero. So he's one of those players that publicly said that if the league does start, I'm not looking to play because he's thinking about his family members. And I understand that it affects all football players. And how do players, do teams say it's up to you whether to play, or are they forced to play? So you can't force players to play. For example, Sergio Aguero said, you got a match tomorrow, you need to play, we need to do training, we need to quarantine you in a quarantine hotel. So how does that work for players who don't want to play in fear of their families getting the virus, or they spread the virus to other players or family members? So you're looking at that. But then also I looked at the stats between the age and demographics of people who are affected by the virus. A lot of the people who die from coronavirus is the elderly population. And I think in Germany, only about 13 people died from they were 20 to 40 years old. So in that respect, it gives in the reverse scenario and saying, it may be safer than to play, but making sure that they follow the rules, like quarantine, make sure that they're tested all the time, and make sure when they do get tested, they're able to, they quarantine away for 2 weeks and they're out of action for that period of time. So it's just getting a fine blend between the safety of players and the financial feasibility of playing is very difficult to get right.
One of the things I'm going to mention is, so we've all kind of have a feeling that a second spike is probably going to arise in Germany. Somewhere or another, a second spike will come out because of the congregation of fans and players. And we've briefly touched on to the fans. And obviously, if football was to kick off again, they'll probably have, unfortunately, friends coming over because it's football, it's how it is. You can't just watch a game on your own, unless you're live streaming off a dodgy website like Jasmine or something, But anyway, that's another story. Find a RussianBride.com. Yeah. But that's another story. But what I'm trying to say is, in terms of fans, do you guys see fans being more, responsible in this? Can you see, because obviously we have to think about the worst case scenario, and that is people congregating together, watching the game, and then, then the virus spreads. Rafe, do you see issues like that arising? Obviously, I'm being a hopeful optimist and saying it's not going to happen, but
look, huge issues, because people were asked not to do it last time round when the games were played behind closed doors, and they did. Everywhere there was games on in the Champions League, in the Premier League. Well, sorry, not in the Premier League, but in England, there were games held behind closed doors, and there were people congregating outside the stadiums. Not just in stadiums as well. Obviously in the Premier League, they're suggesting playing them in neutral venues to stop this gathering. But fans are only going to go to each other's houses. They're going to go to local restaurants, local squares, local parks, wherever it is that they can come together. There'll be, you know how it is with social media. Something can go up on Twitter 2 hours before the game, gathering at XY Park, gathering at the pub, bring your mates, and people will be there. They'll go there with every intention of maintaining social distancing, but after a few beers, they'll be oh yeah, we're not looking directly at each other kind of thing. Oh yeah, I had my hand up when I was coughing. And like, it's just not going to be possible to keep people apart. And again, things are going to start reopening and people are going to start coming in closer contact with each other. But if there's the opportunity to keep them apart for things that aren't essential, I'd definitely be an advocate of only doing the essentials, especially early on.
Do you see there? I'm not trying to be all negative and say it's all bad. Can you see some positive in bringing football back for the fans?
Yeah, I mean, we all love football. Especially right now with nothing to do except kind of go out for a bit of exercise. You know, you're not even allowed to go out and eat in restaurants and stuff. Everything's shut down. Like the one thing that you'd love to be able to watch, especially on the weekend, is a game of football or a few games of football. So it's something that we get huge amounts of enjoyment out of. So to have some football to watch, some live football and a league to be interested in again would be fantastic. But it's just like that's from an idealist point of view. It's just not a realistic. I think we have to be very ultra realistic in this scenario, and it's just not a good idea in my opinion at all.
I think definitely like technology. Maybe we could make pubs can do something with technology, so they can have a Zoom call with like all the punters. Maybe everyone have their own Guinness beer. And just start that way, because like everyone said, like once you get so many people gathering in, it's just a matter of time before there's a huge influx of coronavirus and everyone, because also you think about asymmetric, like people don't know they got coronavirus. Even when you have somebody testing, you don't know about the asymmetric. So people might have no symptoms at all, but then they have coronavirus. So we need to make use of technology and make sure like we are following the social distance, because it could be a year for the vaccine to be produced for coronavirus. So we need to do something for a year's time. Is that making sure that the herd immunity, or how does it really work? So maybe we need to use more technology. So that's all questions that arise to. But I see the Bundesliga as a model for other leagues. So, for example, the Spanish league is looking to open up again. So, and the Premier League as well. So, we just need to follow up from the Bundesliga and see how that works.
I think it was you, Rafe, that mentioned briefly about the 50 plus one concept in Germany. I know I'm reading a little bit about it, but I'll be honest, I'm not an expert on it. And I read that there is a percentage of fans that have certain percentage, and it's not like it's run in the Premier League where you can do what you like. It's a lot more fan focused. Is that fair to say? And do you want to just elaborate a bit more?
Yeah, I mean, like by no means am I a Bundesliga expert by any stretch of the imagination. But it's my understanding that clubs like the Red Bull Club are very unpopular in Germany because of the way that they've been formed, the money, and they've come up, and eventually they've gone and complied, and they've sold off just about enough shares that they need to comply. But I think the idea is that it stops fans from losing their club, the way we've seen countless times in the UK. We've seen Leeds plummet down the table. We've seen Charlton plummet down the table. But down the leagues, even Bolton, Bury. Like I could sit here all day listing British clubs that have been mismanaged by owners. And I think the whole idea is just that it keeps the clubs rooted in some way, shape or form to the fans. It gives them a voice. It gives them an opinion. It stops the clubs being all about money, 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 money. I think it's actually part of the reason the Bundesliga has been able to go back so quickly is because there's not as much money to be cut up and shared between the teams. Like in the UK, what seems to be happening is that the teams at the moment are all fighting over who's going to get what. The bottom clubs want relegation taken off the cards. Certain clubs want to play their matches at home. People want it this way, people want it that way. Whereas in Germany, there's this sense that if we don't come together and play this, we're going to start losing our football teams. We're going to start losing our league anyway. And there is a more general sense of togetherness and football community, maybe in Germany and in parts of Europe, whereas in the UK, things are incredibly tribalistic. It's my club. It's this team. Like this is the figure now. This is the boss. This is the manager. This is the way it is now. Whereas in Germany, the attitude just seems a bit different, and it's enabled them to go back a little bit sooner, for better or for worse. It's enabled them to, and it's encouraged them to.
Something that we've touched in our sort of podcast briefly is the fact that is it fair to take a percentage of players' wages towards that? And is it fair, or is it right that players say no, I don't want to give money or anything towards this? As we've seen with Mesut Ozil as a big sort of advocate of saying no. Because in Germany, I read that they've given around 10%, and they've been a lot more open with fans and sort of their players, and saying that this is what we could lose if you don't contribute, then we'll have to lose staff and we lose as a family. Do you feel, because I feel like in Germany, which you mentioned, Rafe, is that it's a lot more sort of team focused, a lot more fan focused, whereas in the UK there is that element of I'm fighting for myself and that's it, or I'm fighting for my team, that sort of tribalistic aspect of things. Just kicking off with you, Joe, do you agree that players are put into this, that they have to give, or what's your thought on that, players giving up for this?
Yeah, I think perhaps it depends on the club and the situation that they're in financially, and if they're going to have to start laying off non-playing staff. If I was in that position as a footballer earning the money that top footballers do, I would feel obliged to do what I could to help the people who, I don't know, it could be the chefs in the restaurant, or the waiting staff, or junior physiotherapists, whatever it is. I think that footballers should feel morally obliged to make sure that doesn't happen. But it's different. Like in Italy, I think Juventus took a cut of 30% or something like that, like a very, very, very high wage cut for 3 months or something like that. And in England, we're talking about Arsenal doing 12.5% for a year.
Doesn't it depend on the owners, and then they agree between the players, and then whether I think it's quite a lot of legal implications as well. For example, if they defer the wage, do they get that back in bonuses? For example, like Arsenal, do they get back in, if they get back in the Champions League, do they get a set amount? I think also you look at like Premier League players, like they did a lot of positive stuff as well. For example, like the Henderson set up the initiative, the NHS initiative, where football players bring a fund together and give back to the NHS. It's hit and miss. So, for example, like Ozil, you got big players like Ozil saying they're not going to defer their wage, and understand. I think Ozil donated a lot to Muslim charities, and that's a big thing. Why?
Quite a bit around charity.
Yeah, he does. And after the World Cup in Brazil, which Germany obviously won, he donated all of his winnings to Brazilian street children to have life-changing operations. He does do a lot of humanitarian work. It's just kind of, I think for him, this is his last big contract. I think everyone knows that. So he's probably not looking to lose any money, and also his money is not invested all in himself. It's invested in these other ventures that he has. He's part of a couple of different business interests with Matteo Flamini. I don't know if you remember him, the former Arsenal. But anyway, yeah, he has other business pursuits as well. So I think.
Flamini's the one with the billionaire, isn't he? He's going to be the.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's an environmental company or something to do with climate change. Yeah, and Ozil has I think it's a male cosmetics company with him. So he does have other interests that he has to make sure his money is invested properly. So
I mean, I think it's very easy for people to sit at home and kind of shake their fist at a TV and say, "Oh, look, these footballers should be doing more. They should be doing this with their money. They should be doing that with their money." But like you said, with Ozil there, and he's not alone in it. So many footballers have so many charities and do so much work either in the countries that they're from themselves. You got to remember, a lot of the Premier League players aren't from the UK, and they're sending a lot of their money home to their home countries already to support things going on there. Some of the work that the players have done, giving money to the NHS, is fantastic, but you kind of wish they didn't have to do that. You kind of wish that the government were in charge of looking after public services, and then maybe the footballers could, if they were to take a slight wage cut, could give that money back to their football teams or back into football. And you think the footballers, if they took a cut and gave it back into the FA or back into whatever it was, FIFA, and the money was distributed through football, I think that'd be much better. But there's a lot of this, players should take a wage cut, but then what happens to their money, and who decides exactly where it goes? And is it up to the chairman how much they take? Is it up to the chairman where it goes? Is it up to the head of the Premier League where it goes? Is it up to someone in the government? Because I think a lot of players wouldn't trust anyone in the government to spend the money properly. They'd prefer to actually take it to a hospital or hand it over themselves. I mean, I'm sure so much of the players' charitable work hasn't been documented. It's much easier to say, oh, here and this and here and that. There are a lot of rich people all around the world. A lot of them don't play football, and a lot of them aren't giving any money either. There's this target on footballers. I can't remember who it was. There was a politician a few weeks ago that made the comment about footballers and started all of this.
It was Matt Hancock, the health secretary.
Yeah, which was the health secretary was saying that footballers should pay for their crisis. Like it's just total diversion tactics on the part of the British government to take the heat off themselves and say, look at these guys over here. You all know who they are. They should be doing more. Like,
and just jumping back into German football, since it's coming up into the weekend, we're probably excited for it. Something better than what was it, Belarusian league? You know.
Yeah, that was the only other one.
Yeah, a little bit more entertaining. So, do you guys see that Bayern Munich is as easy as it is? Because there's a 4-point difference between them and second place Dortmund, and they've lost 4 games to Hoffenheim, Frankfurt, Leverkusen, and Mönchengladbach. Is it as, you know, do you think it's going to be as easy for them with neutral grounds, with fans not attending? Do you think it's going to be as easy, or do you think they've won it? 4 points, they'll already, there's 9 or 10 games left, so they'll do it.
I think since getting rid of Kovac, they've improved a lot. They were kind of down in 5th and 6th, weren't they? And Mönchengladbach were at the top at the start, if I'm not mistaken. And I can't see anything other than a Bayern Munich Bundesliga win. Like, it's so they kind of have the formula taken care of, if you know what I mean. They're just it's very formulaic the way that they go about winning the Bundesliga year after year.
Find the league's best players and buy them.
Exactly. It's a proven formula in France as well, and Italy. Yeah, no, the German league is very competitive from 2nd kind of down to 6th and 7th. You have a lot of good teams like Leipzig. I really, even though there's a lot of controversy surrounding them, which Rafe has touched on already, I like their how they are run in a footballing way. That they put a lot of emphasis on developing youth, and the team that they have at the moment is littered with players who would command a lot of money if the Premier League clubs came sniffing around. But at the end of the day, Bayern Munich are Bayern Munich, and they are just a cut above the rest of the German clubs. Like, even the likes of Borussia Dortmund, who are another very well-run club. That's actually something to be said for the Bundesliga, and what Rafe was touching on earlier about fans being involved in the clubs is that they do tend to be run very, very well, and there's a lot more stability in them than the clubs in England, for sure.
I mean, Dortmund had their chance as well. I think coming in maybe January, just after Christmas, they were a couple of points clear. They played against Bayern Munich, and I think they were beaten, and they surrendered their lead. And I think like Joe said, once you give this Bayern Munich team a lead at the top of the table, it's very, very, very rare that you're going to catch them.
Yeah, that was Dortmund's chance. Sorry, that was Dortmund's chance. If they held out in there, even got a draw, psychologically, it would have been a big step forward. But once they lose that game, then, you know, their heads are going to drop, and it's going to be the ball in Bayern Munich's court again.
Yeah, there is a 4-point difference, which I will point, and Dortmund still have to play Bayern at their ground.
Yeah, that's correct.
That possibility that they could win, but I know they've got Haaland, they've got Sancho, they've got a really nice and young and up-and-coming team that can challenge Bayern. Is there any possibility? Because you look at it, obviously it was when Kovac was in charge, they've lost majority of those 4 games. But, you know, coming back into this, are the players' mentality right? Do you see Bayern possibly slipping up, or is it good and gone?
Yeah, like Naz said about like Munich have to play Dortmund at the Sigan Iduna Park. So that's anyone's, like, for me, Dortmund would be favourites for that game. So if they win that game, that's going to be 1 point difference. And then with the 1 point difference, anything can happen. Any slip-ups, Dortmund could capitalise. That's how I see it on that end. But like Joe and Rafe said, like Munich is such a strong side. You got like Lewandowski, you got Serge Gnabry, like Neuer. These really great players. So I think it's like everyone, like pundits say, it's Munich's to lose. So they've got one hand on the trophy. It's theirs for them to lose, or for them to slip up. As a Liverpool fan, slip up. Yeah.
So one of the last topics that we'll jump onto is, a couple last topics, is has there been any players that have interested you who've played in Germany that you'd like your team to purchase? Or because obviously there's, for Liverpool fans, there's Timo Werner that's been popping up that could be coming to Liverpool. Yeah, so do you guys see anything in particular, even for Arsenal? Do you guys see any players that have popped up?
Yeah, for me, I see a lot of talent in the Bundesliga. For Arsenal, we've been linked with Dayot Upamecano from Leipzig, French centre back. Very quick, very strong, very big, commanding in the air. Good passer of the ball as well. He looks like he's going to be a generational talent. Only got 1 year left on his contract, but he'll still command a significant fee this summer. And the problem is, will anyone be able to splash the cash now that the coronavirus has affected football in the way that it has? The other one for me would be Haaland, but he'd be very expensive, and Dortmund have absolutely no need to sell. I just think that he's the best young striker that I've seen maybe in my lifetime. Like, I remember watching the original Ronaldo when I was very young, kind of when he was playing for Inter Milan and Real Madrid, and he was brilliant. But the best, like, I think Haaland is the next best pure number 9 that I've seen. Not the Messi, Ronaldo, who were kind of forwards as opposed to strikers, but Haaland is just phenomenal.
Yeah, you get glimpses of Fernando Torres 2008, 2009.
I think he's better than that. I think he's much better than that. He can do anything. He's quick. He's so strong. He's so quick. He just seems so big. Like, I remember when Patrick Vieira was playing, and he just seemed so much bigger than everyone else. Sometimes you get Yaya Toure as well. You get players like that who just ooze power, and he's one of those. And to boot, he's very skillful, and he's very good with both feet and in the air. He's just a phenomenal striker. And Dortmund, they signed him for what, 20 million euro, something like that. It's insane how he was allowed to leave Salzburg for such a small sum. Although there are very high agents fees, I believe, but the actual transfer fee from club to club was 20 million euro or thereabouts.
One player I loved Liverpool to get is Timo Werner. So we've been in talks with him for a long time, like transfer rumours around him for maybe 1 or 2 seasons. So if everyone doesn't know, he's a centre forward, a bit like a Firmino type player. So he links up all the players, and then he's very much like a Firmino player. So if we do sell, I think we'd only get Timo Werner if we sell anyone from the top 3, like Salah, Mane, or Firmino, because I don't think Werner wants to play on the bench, or he's happy with sitting on the bench or getting limited game time. So in terms of that, he might look to, I think there's a lot of like clubs such as Man United who are like looking to buy Timo Werner. So like that's a player we'll look to buy. So his stats for this season is 27 goals in 36 appearances. So definitely something that he could bring someone to Liverpool, but whether he's willing to go and for the right transfer fee is another question.
Yeah, I mean, like, Werner's obviously the big one that they've been linked with. They've come out and kind of said that they're not interested in signing too many more players like they did last year because their team is so strong and it's so competitive. I'm not sure that they would need to sell someone to bring Werner in. I think that they've got that kind of competition all over the rest of the team. It's only maybe one forward that they are missing, and I think he is a slightly different player to Firmino. Like, what did you say, Lewis? He's got 27 and 26.
27, 36, yeah.
Yeah, whereas Firmino's averaging 1 in 10 this season, or something really, really low. He plays a different role in the team. I think Werner is absolutely lightning. He's absolutely rapid. He loves to kind of run and get in behind and play more as a traditional number 9. So if they were to sign a player like that, I think it'd be interesting to see if maybe he did slot in there. Maybe Firmino might move slightly further back, play in behind the striker, or even in midfield, as something Klopp's talked about before. I think Sadio Mane played a ridiculous number of games over the last couple of years. Mo Salah too. There's an African Cup of Nations coming up. I really don't think that strengthening the ranks up top would do the team any harm. Because even Salah looks off form some weeks, but he's asked to play every single week. And I think some of the miles and some of the number of games that they've racked up over the last couple of years have started to catch up with Liverpool. This year, you've seen them get a little bit slower on the ball, making a few mistakes that you wouldn't maybe associate with Liverpool. And I think it's just because of the sheer number of games that they've had to play over the last 18 months, both internationally and domestically.
Yeah, I mean, there's something kind of playing devil's advocate here, but there's something's coming to mind. So when and it's mainly related to Arsenal, but even other clubs around the world have done this. So, for example, when Lacazette was bought, like was it the next season? Aubameyang was bought, and then I think some
There's 6 months later. Sorry,
yeah,
just 6
6
months
months.
later.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, 6 months later in the summer window, wasn't it? Arsenal buys Aubameyang, and what got me thinking is like competition should always be strong in your sort of position. So it's not like a player should always feel comfortable that they've always got their weekly position despite playing rubbish or not doing as well. And that's probably been thrown around with Ozil. That they've said we need maybe a new Cam. He's not doing it as he was before. He's slacked off the ball a bit. Just kick off with you, Joe. Do you see with Arsenal, because obviously you've bought some nice players, and Pepe is still going to take time to integrate into the team. In regards to how Arsenal spend, do you guys see that you will put in more competition into places, any other players that can challenge? Because obviously Aubameyang's got a year left on his contract, isn't it? So he's not like he's going to be here forever, possibly.
He's leaving in the summer.
So what do you think
Probably,
about competition in terms of for Arsenal? I see.
I think that Arsenal's defense gets a lot of criticism, but I think that it's not the worst part of the team. I think that midfield and relying on Ozil, who's way past his best. I was a huge fan of Ozil when he signed for the club, and he was brilliant in the World Cup in 2010, but he's been poor since he signed his new contract, and that was 2 years ago now. So it's really unsustainable to have someone who doesn't contribute in terms of goals and assists as the number 10. It's just going to hold us back for season after season after season. Interesting. Again, look, thinking of the German league, someone who could do a job there would be Kai Havertz from Bayer Leverkusen. I think he would be a really good signing if Arsenal could pay the money for him. But yeah, like you said, in terms of competition for places, something that Alex Ferguson used to do was to sign a new kind of marquee player every year to keep, or maybe not marquee, but a new first team player every year to keep people on their toes. And it's something that Arsenal have to do as every club should do.
Do you think Klopp could follow that model of Sir Alex Ferguson, or do you see it's strong enough they're not going to touch it, they're not going to worry too much about that?
I think Ferguson was traditionally quite a cold manager. I think that he had absolutely no problem cutting a player off and saying, no, look, you're training with the reserves this week and you're out of the team. Don't talk to me like that. I don't like the look of you. I don't like your haircut. He famously made David Beckham shave off a haircut before a game in Wembley because he felt it was too audacious. He said, you're not playing with that hair. It's your decision. Whereas I think Jurgen Klopp is a lot closer with some of the players. They've obviously come out and said that, no, look, he's obviously still the gaffer and he can be tough when he needs to be. And obviously he has difficult decisions every week, leaving out players in midfield where they do have lots of big names. But I couldn't see him actively disrupting what he's got going on at Liverpool at the moment with those forward players. Like, so much is written in the media about the relationship between Mane and Salah and who wants this and who wants that. And if it's anywhere near as dramatic as things are made out to be, I don't think that they need any sort of poking. I think that his motivation skills are proven in themselves. Klopp's motivation is very different to the way that Ferguson used to do things. Ferguson very much ruled by fear, whereas Klopp really wants to trust his own players. They're his boys, as he always calls them, his boys and the lads, and he's really part of that. And I think he manages in a totally different way.
I thought you were about to say rules by love, but
I considered it did cross my mind.
So we'll jump on to the last topic, which is looking at the fixtures for the weekend, and let's try and give some predictions, see what we think. The big game is Dortmund versus Schalke. How do you guys? It's at Dortmund, so how do you guys see it going? Do you think it's as easy as Dortmund winning?
Yeah, I'd say Dortmund win.
Cool.
Not that I watch a ton of Bundesliga, but I think Dortmund have a much better team than Schalke. Schalke haven't been that good for quite a few. You know, anything can happen in football, but they haven't had a very strong team for quite a while. I'd say Dortmund should get a result there.
I'm going to put you on the spot, Joe, and then it's on to you, Lewis. Can you give me a score? Just a prediction.
Yeah, I go for a 3-1 with Holland to score if he's playing.
Cool. Lewis?
Well, I've got maybe 2-0 with Marco Reus getting assist or goal.
Nice. And Rafe?
I reckon it's got to be 0-0. The players haven't played in a couple of months. Who knows what's going to come out of the changing room. I wouldn't hold your breath for fantastic football this weekend when it does get played. It's going to be some way away from the product that we're normally used to seeing, I think.
There's another one on Monday, actually. So it's Werder Bremen versus Bayer Leverkusen. Start with you, Lewis. What's the score going to be? What do you think? Prediction?
Werder Bremen. So I think Werder Bremen are like near the bottom of the table, so like 19. I can't really see a result for Werder Bremen. I think it's going to be a whitewash for Bayern Leverkusen, especially their attack force like Kai Havertz. Who's
Leon
the Jamaican
Bailey?
winger?
Leon Bailey?
Bailey.
Yeah.
He's English as well, isn't he?
No, he's Jamaican.
Yeah,
He did trials in England. That was it. He doesn't qualify for England.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I find it difficult for like Leverkusen to get a result. Yeah.
And Rafe, what do you think?
Leverkusen.
Yeah.
Yeah. 2-0.
2-0. Joe?
Yeah, I go for the same. Werder Bremen are 17th out of 18, and they've lost 4 of their last 5 games, whereas Leverkusen are 2 points off top 4, and they've won 4 of their last 5 games. So I'd say 2-0 should be a fair result for them.
Someone's quickly pulled up a league table there in front of them.
I have. It's essential.
And probably the best team that we know in Germany, sadly, is Bayern Munich versus FC Union Berlin. Weird name, but how do you guys see it? It's at the Berlin ground. So, is there any upsets?
Yeah, look, there could definitely be an upset on the cards because, like I said, the players haven't played together in weeks. Some players will have been looking after themselves better than others. Some will be in a different headspace to others. It's quite possible that the bigger players on bigger money will be less focused on these games. The whole thing about winning a league is keeping focused for an entire playing season, and with the time off, absolutely anything could have happened inside that camp. Players could have had a massive difference of opinion over wages or transfers or whether or not to even play the game or whatever it is. Half them might not want to be there. So there's absolutely every chance you'll get upsets. But Bayern Munich 4-0 for me.
Okay. Joe, do you see it 5-1, or is that pushing the joke too much?
No, it's not pushing a button. They love a trip to London, though, don't they? I mean, they absolutely smacked Spurs up, which was great.
They smashed Chelsea up as well, so I can't really.
Yeah, they did. No,
they beat Arsenal a couple of years ago, Joe, as well, didn't they?
No, that's what Nas was hinting at. Yeah, twice, 10-2 on aggregate, 5-1 home, 5-1 away. No, awful memories of
there was
that.
a few rants. I don't know if you've guys seen the channel Arsenal Fan TV. I don't know if.
Oh yeah, of course.
If that's seen a ring the bell or anything. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, how do you see the score? Yeah.
I could certainly see a 5-1. Absolutely, I could see Serge Gnabry and Lewandowski getting a couple of goals each. Maybe David Alaba, if he's playing. Although they've started playing another left back. I can't remember his name, but I think he's Canadian, and I hear he's
Alphonso Davies.
That's it. Yeah.
The speedy guy. Yeah.
He's ridiculously quick.
And Lewis, how do you see the game? Bayern.
I'll put his piggyback off Rafe and Joe. I can't see another result for Union Berlin, especially like there's a vast difference amount of quality in like any league, especially like the Bundesliga or the Premier League. Could see a result like Rafe could be out training or they're just not underprepared, but very difficult to look beyond like a win for Munich.
Cool. So that wraps it up, guys. It looks like everyone's going to be watching Germany instead of the Belarusian league, and everyone's going to be enjoying Lewandowski smashing it in. But it was good having you guys on, Rafe and Joe. Pleasure having you.
Yeah, thanks for having us, lads. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks very much, guys. That was good. Yeah, enjoyed it.
Good discussion about things, touched on a bit of politics and a bit of everything. So it was really fun conversation. And again, so like, comment, subscribe to the channel.